Some rather astonishing religious news hit the headlines yesterday here in the UK, and I want to focus on how it affects Christians and Muslims here. The BBC reported, quote, "For the first time, fewer than half of people in England and Wales describe themselves as Christian, the Census 2021 has revealed." The proportion of people who said they were Christian was 46.2%. down from 59.3% in the last census in 2011. It was 10 years ago. In contrast, the number who said they had no religion increased to 37.2% of the population, up from a quarter. And interestingly, those identifying as Muslim rose from 4.9% in 2011 to 6.5% last year. Now, the census is carried out every 10 years by the Office for National Statistics. Professor Linda Woodhead commented, "Ticking no religion does not mean having no beliefs," she said. And Linda is Professor of Religious Studies at King's College here in London. She said, "Some will be atheist, a lot will be agnostic. They just say, I don't really know. And some will be spiritual and be doing spiritual things," she said. Scotland's census, by the way, was due to take place last year, but was delayed by a year due to the COVID pandemic. Now, in another report in The Guardian, we read, "The census revealed a 5.5 million fall in the number of people who describe themselves as Christian." Now, that's a 17% fall. And a 1.2 million rise in the number of people who say they follow Islam, bringing the Muslim population to 3.9 million. Now, that's a 43% increase in the number of people who identify as Muslim. The Guardian says it's the first time in a census of England and Wales that fewer than half the population have described themselves as Christian. So it's the first time in history that less than half the population call themselves Christians. It's a very significant watershed moment. So according to the new census, to summarise, there are nearly 4 million Muslims in England and Wales. And all this despite the negative media coverage of Islam in the popular press. 5 Pillars, the Muslim news site in the UK, says, and I quote, that London is the place with the highest concentration of Muslims. 15% of Londoners describe themselves as Muslim, up from 12.6% in 2021. That's just last year, from 12% to 15%. This means that over 1.3 million Muslims are living in London alone. Commenting on this latest census data, the Muslim Council of Britain Secretary General Zahra Mohammed said, and I quote, "While our nation has an increasingly ageing population, the contribution to the workforce of a youthful Muslim population remains a strategic national asset. The last decade has seen more second and third generation Muslims confident of our faith and place in society, contributing immensely to the economic recovery and vitality of our nation." End quote. Now, why should this matter to the wider Muslim population? What relevance does Islam have? Well, I'd like to introduce you to a man called Henry Stubb. And I'm going to be reading from this marvellous book called Travelling Home, Essays on Islam and Europe by Abdul Hakim Murad, who teaches Islam at the University of Cambridge. And in his book, on page 85, he introduces us to Henry Stubb. He was a physician, a doctor to James I. James I, who died in 1625, was King of England. And he famously, of course, produced the King James Version of the Bible. That's why it's called the King James Version of the Bible. So Henry Stubb was his physician. And he wrote Stubbs wrote, the first, according to Tim Winter here, Abdul Hakim Murad, the first appreciative biography of the Prophet ever written by a Christian. And this indicates, he writes, the real convergence which his contemporaries noticed between Islam and a certain kind of Puritanism. Puritanism was the kind of movement of the day of kind of evangelical renewal in the church. And Henry Stubbs writes the following, and it's kind of old English, but I like to share it with you. He writes this: "This is the sum of Mohammedan religion," that's what he means by Islam, "on the one hand, not clogging men's faith with the necessity of believing a number of abstruse notions which they cannot comprehend, and which are often contradictory to the dictates of reason and common sense, nor, on the other hand, loading them with the performance of many troublesome, expensive, and superstitious ceremonies, yet enjoining a due observance of religious worship as the surest method to keep men in the bounds of their duty both to God and man." End quote. Now, this is taken from his book, Stubbs' book, which is amazingly entitled An Account of the Rise and Progress of Mohammedanism and a Vindication of Him and His Religion from the Culminaries of the Christians. Now, culminaries is a way of saying the malicious misrepresentation, the lies of the Christians. Now, he is a Christian, of course, himself. It's interesting, this idea of Christian lies. One perhaps can still find this at Speaker's Corner, where Islam is routinely misrepresented, quite often maliciously, by the Christian missionaries there. I don't mean to say that all missionaries are like that, of course. So this is a fascinating insight into the earliest appreciation in England we have of Islam from a very senior and distinguished scholar, physician to the king himself. I wonder if he had conversations with King James about Islam. Who knows? So this tells us that he was aware, Stubbs was aware of the similarity between the beliefs of Islam and his own Unitarian Christianity. And he can be seen as part of a growing tradition at this time, expressing a dissatisfaction with the intellectual inconsistencies of Trinitarianism, as he saw it. And he's seeking to discover the original Unitarian roots of the Christian tradition in the Middle East. And this is very interesting because he identifies Islam with this. And of course, we can go back to Moses and then to Jesus and to Muhammad, peace be upon them all of them from the Middle East, from the same part of the world. And so even this early on, there was a awareness in some quarters in England of the authenticity and the truth of Islam. So this is the relevance really of Islam. It's a calling back to the faith of Moses, Abraham, Jesus and Muhammad, of course, peace be upon them all, a belief in one God, a Unitarian faith, a God of mercy, a God of justice, a God of love, and so on. And this is part of English history. It's not alien to it. And all of these religions, as I say, find their roots, their historical roots in the Middle East. So if we have accepted Christianity as part of our history in England, then Islam is no less a part of that historical heritage as well. So there we are. I just wanted to share with you amazing news. Islam is the one religion, major world religion in Britain that is bucking the trend and is increasing its adherents quite dramatically, mainly, of course, through immigration, but not just through immigration, also through conversion. There are hundreds of thousands, at least, of English people who have converted to Islam, and there's a steady stream of people who are converting to the faith, particularly and interestingly amongst women who are attracted to the values of the faith. The dignity of women, of course, is a key theme in Islam, spoken of in the Quran and in the hadith of the Prophet himself, upon whom be peace. And this attracts many women over against the materialism and the sexualization of gender and their own sex, of course, that they see in wider society. So this census result is very interesting news. The inexorable decline of Christianity in Britain, and the rise of Islam and other spiritualities as well, not just Islam, but Islam is by far the most significant increase, I think, of all, and it will in the future, I think, become the main focus of monotheistic energy in Britain as the other Abrahamic faiths decline. Anyway, till next time.